Warning, the following episode of the Blackwell podcast contains spoilers from all episodes of Life is Strange.
Hi and welcome to the Blackwell podcast, where we love Life is Strange more than the fishermen want to save the whales. I'm Jamie, and like usually I'm joined here with Joey and Jess.
Hi.
Hey.
And this week we are joined by Toby Palm, who is the current community manager for Life is Strange. Hey Toby.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
How you doing this week?
Yeah, pretty awesome. Yeah, looking forward to being on the podcast. I've listened to most of your podcasts over the past months and stuff like that, so it's always been quite good to have on in the background as I'm working. So it's quite exciting to be on one myself finally.
It's great to hear, actually.
We're glad to hear you. Yeah. Glad to have you.
So, to those who are unaware who you are, could you give a brief introduction of who you are and what you do?
Sure thing. So I am the current community manager for Life is Strange. If you're previous listener of the Blackwell podcast, you might remember Scott on here, who I think that was a couple months ago now. He is the preceding community manager, so I took the reins off him basically and kicked him out the door. So as a community manager, it's my job to basically act as the liaison, as it were, between you guys, the community, and the development team and the production team on our side. And that means then also being in charge of the social channels. That's the Facebook, the Twitter, YouTube, Tumblr, Instagram, Scott's failed attempt at Snapchat as well at some point. So I'm in charge of those. And of course, I try and get involved in the fan-led communities as much as possible, as in lifestrangefans.com and the Reddit community, a bit on the Tumblr and stuff like that. So, and of course Steam as well, which is also quite a massive one. And it's just sort of being aware of what's going on in all these communities and sort of trying to highlight awesome stuff that's happening in them.
Keeps you busy, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm. It does, surprisingly. I mean, you wouldn't think it does. You'd think I sit all day on Facebook, but by the end of the day, I still don't know. You know, I'm still always behind on things and never have enough time to actually do some of the projects I like to catch up on.
Right. So, let's get started with these questions. Now, since you work at Square Enix and it's a big gaming company, it's probably best to ask the question of what actually got you to gaming in the first place.
That is a good question, actually. So just as a bit of background information for myself, I grew up in Africa for 12 years and moved to North America afterwards, and then went to university in the UK. So I've been all around the place. But specifically, when I was living in Malawi, my dad works for UNICEF. He one day brought home a PlayStation 1 when he had been traveling to Europe. And I remember coming into the living room, or actually my parents' bedroom at that point, because that's where the TV was. And he was playing Crash Bandicoot on the TV. And I was amazed. And, I instantly fell in love with it all. And I played PlayStation 1 for the rest of my time on that continent. Crash Bandicoot and Final Fantasy in particular are massive influences on how I developed as a gamer. And I only mention that because being in Africa, you don't actually have access to regular TV. If we wanted to watch like a show, we had to go to the library and borrow Postman Pat or whatever, some weird VHS from that's been rewound 500 times and is really dodgy. So the only entertainment in terms of video entertainment I had back then was actually my PlayStation 1, and I absolutely rinsed it for all I could, and it was great. And I ended up playing Crash Bandicoot and Final Fantasy loads. And when we then moved to New York, I upgraded to PlayStation 2, but I also started playing on PC. So I got into games like StarCraft and Counter-Strike then, and a bunch of other PC games. So I've really sort of been an all-rounder, and I've kept that going. So nowadays I still play on I've upgraded through to the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation 4 afterwards, and I still play on my quite slow laptop right now. That's a bit of a potato. But yeah, I'm still playing all sorts, really.
Do you still go back and play Crash Bandicoot from time to time?
I wish I could. The PlayStation 1 is now in my parents' loft, which is in Germany. They've retired there. So it's collecting dust, but whenever I visit them, I try and break it out and play on my broken controllers that have no DualShock. But yeah, it's great, and I love Crash Bandicoot, and it was actually pretty cool to see, hints here and there of potential Crash Bandicoot resurgence and sort of coming again or something like that.
That would be interesting.
It would.
Naughty Dog has up their sleeve.
Exactly.
So, how did you get involved with Square Enix then? Said you actually played a lot of Final Fantasy.
Yeah, it was really weird. Coming out of university, during which I played a lot of RuneScape. Actually, it was a great game. Coming out of university, I thought I'd be very grown up, and I'd studied for 3 years and did a bachelor's in history and politics, and then I went on to do a master's in history and focusing on terrorism. And I thought I'd get into counterterrorism as a job career perspective, but that didn't really work out because in Germany, because I'm a German national, in Germany you need to have mathematical or Arabic-speaking degree to be part of their counterterrorism unit, and in England I can't join it. I can't join MI5 because I'm not English, so that didn't work out. And I ended up going to a IT analyst house, which is something completely different, because I thought that'd be a very grown-up thing to do. Turns out being grown up is very overrated, and it was very boring. And I sort of came back out of that, and I thought, I just want to do something that I actually really enjoy doing. And I love gaming, and I applied to Square Enix, and I got into Square Enix as part of the customer service team. So I really started basically at the bottom rung and sort of had to work my way up, inch by inch, really, to get into the community management role.
Huh, that's really cool. Did it take you a long time to work your way up, or was it really quickly? Or
it's about 2.5 years before I was able to sort of switch over to community management. It's weird because in my customer service team, in which I worked for 2.5 years, it was good, but there wasn't a place I could progress to. So after about a year, I was sort of getting a bit itchy feet because I like progressing and I like sort of having a goal in mind that I can work towards. And there I just didn't. So I started to look around the company what kind of opportunities there were, and they had an open position for community management actually, and I thought that actually could be quite a good fit for myself, having worked in customer service, not just at Square Enix but in previous sort of summer jobs as well, sort of working with large crowds of people, and I thought it'd be a good fit. I didn't get the job actually initially, but that gave me the contact to my current boss, and I said, even though I didn't get the job, I'm really interested in to continue working or to start working as part of the community management team. Is there anything we can do? And in the end, what we did was I basically worked all my hours in customer service over 4 days, and then on Fridays I'd always take a half day off from customer service team, and I just went to the community team and learned everything I could from them. And eventually, after 6 months of sort of doing these overtime shifts and just absorbing as much knowledge as I could and talking a lot of theory as well with my manager, my current boss now, a community executive position opened up, and I joined as part of that. So it took me, I'd say about 2.5 years to get there. I'd say it was definitely worth it. It was a long road to get into the community team. I won't downplay that, but it was definitely worth it, and I haven't looked back since.
So leading on to Square Enix, you kind of already touched on this, but how did you get the role of taking over from Scott as community manager?
It's actually quite interesting with my contact with Life is Strange. Scott joined, I think, half a year after myself into the community management team, and he actually joined after Life is Strange as a game had been announced. It was announced at Gamescom, I think, 2014, maybe. Yeah. And I was actually the one who set up all the channels, all the Facebook, the Twitter, and sort of I set them live. I put all the artwork up, and then Scott sort of came in a couple of weeks later. And at that point, my manager, when Scott joined, because I don't think Scott was assigned to a project when he joined, he was just hired as a community manager and then moved on to Life is Strange. And my manager gave Scott and myself the choice between working on Life is Strange or working on Square Enix indie initiative, Square Enix Collective. And I chose to work on Square Enix Collective at that point, and Scott then chose to work on Life is Strange. But I did have sort of that initial contact with the game, which was awesome. And then after Scott left, I was then asked to move on to the Life is Strange brand, which I actually did very happily, because in my previous role, when I didn't have a single focus, so I was working very much on lots of smaller projects. The Square Enix Publisher brand one, Square Enix Collective another, Championship Manager, which is one of our mobile games. I worked as community manager for Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition as well. And all these games, they were really fun to work on, these projects, but all of them didn't take up enough time to be one massive project the way Life is Strange is. Life is Strange takes up all of my time from 9 till 5 till 6, whenever, and if I had another focus, I'd be hard pressed to sort of get everything done. So I was actually very much looking forward to moving on to a single one, and getting onto Life is Strange then was great. And I'm really happy that I landed the position.
So you're pretty much taking back what was rightfully yours in the first place.
Exactly. Yes, the usurper had to be set aside.
Right. So yeah. Probably time to move on to the next question. So what was your initial impression of Life is Strange when you first found out about it?
So the first conversations I remember having around it was between myself and the PR people in Square Enix, and everyone was raving about this potential game that Square Enix was going to sign quite soon. And had I seen it? No, I should definitely come check out this vertical slice that had been sent over, and I then checked it out, and it was a VLC file, as in a video file, and it was Chloe's room, but it was a very rough draft of it, and it was Michelle speaking over and sort of explaining what the game was and how it works, and I think Max and Chloe, I can't remember if they had no voices or if they had robot voices at that point, but it was very weird. But you had to put on your dev goggles to sort of look past the draft and the version that was in front of you and see the potential past it. And I think because the entire office was so hyped about the game and everyone was hoping that they'd get to work on it. I remember some of the PR team talking to them. They were like, "Oh, I really hope I can work on Life is Strange," and sort of that entire mood it was very infectious, and it made it very, very sort of it built the game up in a way that I think if that hadn't been there, I might have dismissed Life is Strange. Just because I looked at it, but without having those sort of developer goggles on and being able to see the potential and past it, it was difficult because Chloe's room with Max and Chloe robot voices, and even though David does come into that scene, because you don't have that emotional attachment to the characters at that point yet, and you don't know what's going to happen throughout the story, it's tough to sort of become immediately emotionally attached. But it was awesome to see sort of the kind of game that we were going to sign, which was something completely different to the Final Fantasies, the Legacy of Kain, Tomb Raider, the Deus Ex that we already had in our portfolio as Square Enix, and Sea Life Strange, which was something completely different from everything else. And I think that's why everyone else was so excited about it as well, because it was just something completely different that we hadn't done before.
It was, I know it's Don't Nods, but it was, this is Square Enix's first episodic game that they've published, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. I mean, you can always call the Final Fantasy 13, 13-2, 13-3 episodes, but no, true episodes. Yeah, Life Strange is definitely the first real episodic game that we have published. And I think that's also helped, because it was a bit unknown, so people are also quite excited about sort of, the new, what could it be, how could it turn out, and would it do well?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, all that aside for a second, what do you play? Do you have time to play a lot of video games outside of work, or are you mostly are you done with it at the end of the day?
No, I'm a gaming addict. I will admit. I play absolutely all sorts. At the moment, I'm playing League of Legends, Counter-Strike Go during my lunch breaks with a couple other community managers here. We play competitively. At home, I play StarCraft 2 on my PC with my girlfriend. I've just completed Lara Croft and the Temple of Osiris recently. Other than that, I'm also playing Dying Light, Metal Gear Ground Zeroes. So really a massive spread of games. But one thing I am a platinum and achievement hunter. So that means I generally won't put down a game until I've completed it to 100%. I've gotten all the trophies.
Wow.
So that means a lot of grinding in a lot of games and a lot of time spent with them. So I actually get all the games I play, I get to know really, really well, because there's just so much time you spend with them. But the great thing about getting platinums and the 100% achievements is that you see so much of the game that other people don't see when they just drop in briefly. And a lot of achievements, if they're done well, will show you mechanics of the game that you hadn't really considered using before. And that's one of the other reasons I love hunting them. Just because, so in a game it might, achievement might say kill X amount of soldiers with barrels or whatever, or environmental attacks. And normally you wouldn't even think about that, but then suddenly you have to think outside the box and sort of how do you achieve that. And I just love sort of that, looking at things from a different perspective and trying to figure them out, and then actually achieving that as well, and sort of having a little badge to show off how amazing you are. So I've got a PlayStation, like I said, and a PC. I don't have an Xbox, mainly because I just stuck with the PlayStation from 1 to 4. But if someone were to give me an Xbox randomly, I would definitely not say no, and I'd play loads of games on that as well. So I'm not really a platform champion, as it were.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So what communities are you involved in leisurely?
I'd have to say there's 2 communities I'm sort of a part of. The one of them, which is my main focus, is the obstacle course racing community. And that's basically, so obstacle course racing is running through the mud, under barbed wire, over fire, into the freezing cold water, and all of that. And that's sort of my weekend, essentially. That's what I do on a weekly basis. Oh, not on a weekly basis, but when I'm fit, I try and get races in very, very regularly. So being part of that community, figuring out what to do in terms of gear, what gears to use, and helping each other out, and seeing each other again at events and stuff like that. It's really, really great community to be part of, particularly here in the UK where it's really taken off. And then another community that I'm part of is, well, I say I'm part of, I'm much more of a lurker than anything, is the Counter-Strike Go esports community. Mm-hmm. I just follow teams, and I've got my favorite teams that I like to follow and watch them fail horribly in their matches, and then go home sad and all that. But it's great, particularly because esports, I know a lot of people don't take it seriously, but it is actually really fun just to have on in the background. And the funny thing is, I'm a big football player, but I never actually got into watching football. I don't know. It just never interested me. I love playing it, but it never interested me. But with esports, I actually get quite hooked on it, and I'll often have my tablet just sort of propped up next to me in the kitchen or wherever I am, and while I'm doing something, it'll just be sort of there going on, and I'll watch it and have my heart sink as my team continues to lose.
What's your team?
It's in Counter-Strike Go. It is the old TSM. Yeah, they've swapped their name to Astralis now, and they recently lost a player, which I was very devastated about because I love teams that are consistent and have the same 5 people in them. Because I think it just makes it feel more like a sort of family rather than an organization. But yeah, it's good times. I'm still following them.
I kept up with TSM and League for a while when I was playing League of Legends.
Oh, awesome!
That's a different team, kind of.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. With Bjergsen, isn't it?
Yeah, I think now. It was back in when Reggie was actually playing that I was.
Oh, all right. Way back then.
And it was more just laughing at them than supporting them at that point, but.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Alrighty, so next question. So obviously we can't say anything. Well, you can't say anything about whether Life is Strange Season 2 is going to happen or not. But if it were to happen, would you personally want more Max and Chloe, or would you rather see completely different characters take hold?
I'd have to say I want to see different characters, mainly because, as you know, Michelle from Don't Nod said, the story has been told. And for me as well, what I try and sort of convey as much as possible, and whenever I do any community things, it's Life is Strange is what you make of it. And the endings for Life is Strange are very much what you as a person make of them, and how you envision the characters to continue on from that point in time. So I think, and particularly given the different endings that you can have, I think it would be very difficult to continue with Max and Chloe without sidelining one half of the population, the gaming community population, and essentially making one of the endings canon. I know a lot of people love to sort of argue one way or another, but I personally love the fact that you can argue about it. And at some point, if you probably went with Max and Chloe, it's sort of like putting a flag in the ground and saying this ending is canon, and Sacrifice Chloe ending is not canon. Is not canon. So I think that's a really tricky balance to figure out. I mean, it might be possible to figure out for developers, but I personally can't see it happening in a way that's not contrived or that doesn't invalidate the decisions you make in Season 1. But I think what's also very important is to remember that Don't Nod, as a team, they've already demonstrated that they can create characters, that can capture our hearts and who we love, and who we love to follow and who we love to hate and all of that. And there's honestly, for me personally, even though I know everyone's invested very heavily into the characters of Life is Strange Season 1, for me personally, there's no reason that Don't Nod wouldn't be able to do all of that again with a different set of characters. They've done it before, and if you think about it, 1.5 years ago, is it 1.5 years ago? Yeah, about-ish. No one had an attachment to Max and Chloe because no one knew about them. So imagine the potential of if Season 2 were with different characters. Thinking ahead, who could be the Max and Chloe of Season 2? And I think that's a very important thing to realize. And I think Max and Chloe right now are in a very great place where, like I said, it depends what you make of them. And if you chose to sacrifice, it's up to you what they're up to, if they're road tripping it somewhere or whatever. And that's fine. So we can leave them and let's create new characters and have those characters also bring that same emotional attachment that we've previously invested in Max and Chloe, but perhaps in just a different sort of aspect. You know, they don't. Maybe they're not best friends. Maybe I don't know what they could be. But I think it is important to trust Don't Nod to be able to pull that off again. And I also have to say, having the same characters in TV shows, not in TV shows, in shows or in games, can actually become quite tedious. If we think about TV shows, for example, and my favorite example here is Heroes. I'm not sure if you guys watched any of it, but like with achievements and platinum trophies, I try and watch all the series, seasons in a show that I can. And I unfortunately did that with Heroes, and it started off really, really strongly. And then by the time you got to season 6, it was just an utter train wreck and so disappointing. And it made you regret everything, essentially, made you regret sticking with them. And I think if you did the same with Max and Chloe, I think it'd be really difficult to, if a potential season 2 were part of, were with Max and Chloe, where would you go for season 3, season 4? Would you, if you keep going with Max and Chloe, the storyline has to become more and more weird and unbelievable in a way, the way it did with Heroes. And in the end, I think a lot of people would just get tired. And let's look at it in the way of Assassin's Creed and Call of Duty and all that. Now everyone keeps saying, "Oh, it's just more of the same," and we hate it, even though they're very commercially successful. But if you think about it, if you keep things fresh, you won't give people that opportunity to sort of just turn away forever and say it's absolute shit, I'm giving up on it. And I think a lot of games that have direct character sequels are able, as in have sequels with the same characters in them. So, example, Uncharted or Halo or other games like that. For a lot of those games, it's because the gameplay comes first and the story comes second. But with Life is Strange, you can't, because it's such a story-heavy game. I think it's incredibly difficult to keep people interested. Because it's the story that carries it rather than the gameplay, in my mind.
Right.
And I think having to come up with more and more weird stories will eventually just sort of it'll destroy what Life is Strange is as such. That's my very long-winded explanation as to why I think Don't know if they ever decide to do season 2 should go with different characters. Sorry for waffling on. I tend to do that a lot.
Oh no, you're good. I think all of us are kind of in agreement with that.
Awesome. Whew. Got away.
So, who did you originally suspect was responsible for the disappearance of Rachel, or did you suspect anyone? What did you think originally happened to Rachel before the big reveal?
I had to sneak around the office very much during the months when the episodes were being released, because there's a guy at work, we call him Spoiler Brook, because he just spoils everything for everyone whenever he can. So I had to sneak very much around him. So I kept very much to my thoughts to myself, and didn't really discuss the game very much with people at work, which was actually quite tough. But I think initially I actually suspected Samuel, which I know he seems like the most obvious one, and I think that's probably why I fell for it. But I can definitely say with 100% certainty that I did not suspect Jefferson. I mean, to have him sort of come out at the end of season 4 was a great moment for me, because I was like, oh my god, what? I've been made a fool of.
Imagine seeing Samuel just come out of the darkness at that moment.
Oh god,
Samuel warns Max.
Oh, that'd be amazing, actually. He's got a spade in hand and squirrels on his shoulders.
So, what episode do you consider to be your favorite then?
I think it's difficult to pin down to an episode. I'd have to say the alternate reality as a section of the game is my favorite. So that's the end of episode 3 and beginning of season 4, episode 4, if I remember. So and that was my favorite, just because the ending threw a massive curveball for me, with Chloe in the wheelchair. And then moving on to that I keep mixing season episodes up. In episode 4, the choice that you have to make with Chloe then was the first time in a game for me that I had to put the controller down. I had to really sort of think about it. I had to sort of take my time figuring it out and making a decision and questioning myself and why I'm doing it. So I'd have to say sort of end of episode 3. Going on to 4, and I just love it when a game can surprise you in that way. And I don't mean like a surprise, it's Jefferson sort of thing. It's more of a surprise. Not like so the first game I ever realized this with was when I played The Walking Dead season 1. Mm-hmm. So many moments in that game where things happen that are completely unexpected, and you're just sort of left with your mouth hanging open. I mean, I don't want to spoil any Walking Dead season 1 players right now, but there's so many moments in that game, and a lot of these I saw in Livestreams as well, where it's not necessarily the jump surprise, as in, oh my god, it's Jefferson, I knew it. But the fact that the game has placed you in a position where you have to choose something, whether it's killing one person or not killing them, or dealing with a situation, and that situation usually being so incredibly messed up that you'd never actually put yourself or find yourself in that normally, and then having to make that decision is incredible. And I think that is why I also liked the alternate reality so much, because it is exactly that sort of section of the game that puts you into this position you never expected you'd be in, and it forces you to make a choice you never thought you'd have to make. And quite often those choices are unique. You don't have any other games, as far as I'm aware, where you I know in a lot of games you have the option to, do you kill this person or do you not kill them? But there's a massive difference between sort of killing someone and, overdosing them on morphine,
right.
And that sort of, so those moments that make you question yourself are my favorite, and that's why I have to say it's actually the alternate reality section rather than any episode that I have to consider my favorite.
Did you cry?
No, I have no emotions, therefore I didn't cry. But my girlfriend did, so she cried at everything. Yeah, but no, I think that part did choke me up more than the ending did, actually. So yeah, but it is tough. I had to keep my emotions to myself. Breathe deeply.
So, kind of talking about kind of favorite parts, or like, kind of going on to people. Which character from Life is Strange did you actually relate to the most?
I was thinking about this the other day, and I'd have to say Luke. If anyone actually knows who Luke is, bonus points. But but see, he's one of the characters. He keeps to himself. But so he's just like an outsider watching everything unfold a bit, and you never actually hear from him. But he's there. He's doing his thing. He's just getting on with stuff. And that's me basically. I don't usually jump into the thick of things if I don't have to, and I just like watching things. I like watching drama unfold. So in a way, I could say I'm a lot like Samuel, but I like to think I'm a little less creepy than he is, and that's why I didn't pick Samuel. So I just picked another background character who seems to sort of do his own thing and just get on with stuff.
Luke is the one that's sitting at the table in episode 1, right? Across from Evan.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I think it is. Yeah. He's also the guy who gets stuffed into a locker at some point. So,
Aww.
so yeah, maybe another parallel there.
So going back to working as a community manager, was there a particular moment that sticks out to you?
I'd have to say there's no one moment as such, but my overall time working on Liz or Life is Strange has actually been amazing because it's just the most active and positive community I've seen in any gaming and most definitely in Square Enix because we've got so many franchises at Square Enix and so many brands, and I've worked a little bit on a lot of them. But Life is Strange is definitely the most active and the most positive and the most engaged community out of all of them. And it's quite a small game by Square Enix standards. And I think just being able to work on a community like this is awesome. To have a community that is positive and sort of, you when you post things that you find funny, they'll find it funny as well. And a lot of communities, a lot of other games, not just with Square Enix, other games as well, they suffer from having a community that is actually quite negative. So anytime you post something on Facebook or Twitter or something else, if you look at the comments, particularly of the big game franchises, the first 5 comments will just be negative stuff about the game. Why is it broken? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? And with Life is Strange, you don't actually have that. I guess in between episodes, you'll always have the where's episode 4, where's episode 5 sort of thing. But other than that, everyone actually just sort of is there to rejoice almost in the game, and enjoy it and see the cool stuff that people have been creating for it. They're not there to moan and complain, and I think that is actually something that cannot be underestimated by any in any way, shape, or form. And so having a particular moment is difficult to pinpoint. I just have to say the entire time I've worked as community manager for Life is Strange has been definitely one of the peaks in my career so far, which is awesome because I'm still here. Still around.
Gotta say something.
Exactly.
So up next we have the big question that we always have to ask people.
God.
So are you Team Bay, B-A-E, or Bay, B-A-Y? So Chloe or Arcadia Bay?
I am a B-A... Y. I think I always consider the greater good when I'm gaming or when I'm just generally doing life, if possible. So Bay with the Y was always the choice I would have chosen one way or another. I don't think it doesn't matter how close the connection between myself and Chloe or between Max and Chloe for me was. I always had that greater good in the back of my mind. And to be fair, if you consider the best tragedies, there's always a sacrifice in them. And I know what sacrificing Arcadia Bay is definitely a sacrifice and can be considered as such. But sacrificing something for the greater good, that's the sign of a real hero for me. And with Max being the hero in this story, for myself at least, Bay was the only choice I could have taken. I know it's definitely not something that the community will appreciate me saying, but I'll stick to my guns. half of them will. The other half will burn me at stake. But yeah,
but didn't burn Hannah yet, so you're fine.
Very true, very true. But yeah, no, like I say, I've what I always try and communicate as much as possible whenever I do anything in the community is that it's always what you make of it. And even though it is great to see people arguing one way or another, but it's always great to remember that there is no canon ending. And it's up to what everyone makes of the game themselves.
Right.
Well, don't worry, you are not alone with your answer, because the majority of people that we've had on the show chose the same. So
It makes 8 now?
that is 8-2.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. You got a scoreboard somewhere.
Yeah,
Or short next to it. You etching into your desk with a knife.
Yeah.
Every time someone picks something. Wow.
Alrighty, so probably calm ourselves down. Kind of a decent segue. Recently, the Life is Strange YouTube pages have started to post videos called Moments of Calm. So how did that actually come to be?
So when I'm I always keep a close eye on what people say in the comments whenever I post anything, and oftentimes people post completely unrelated things to what I've actually said, which is fine. But quite oftentimes I actually saw people whenever I posted something about the music in particular. A lot of people would say, they just sort of sat or still do sit with the main menu just up for Life is Strange, and they sort of do whatever they work or they bustle around the house or whatever while that music is playing. And I figured, there's an easier way, guys. How about I just actually record this for 10 minutes? I stick it up on YouTube, and everyone can live an easier life. And so quite often, because I do spend a lot of time on YouTube anyway, and one of my favorite music genres actually is it's a bit different than other people, I guess. It's soundtrack and trailer music. So it's actually the music that is generally used in trailers and in certain soundtracks as well.
Like Two Steps from Hell.
Exactly, Two Steps from Hell are one of my favorite bands of all times. There's a bunch of other ones and composers that I love, and quite often what you see on YouTube, if when people upload them, people often loop those tracks in a way that ends up in 10 minutes. And I sort of figured, 10 minutes actually seems like the perfect length of time to actually do a moment of calm. So I went with that. And funnily enough, the exact same week, maybe even I think just 24 hours before I posted the first moment of calm, Shuhei Yoshida, the president of Sony, literally posted that exact sequence on Twitter. So I felt almost like people were going to say I was copying him, but I really wasn't. I had planned it a week in advance at least. So I posted that, and it actually got a really good response, which I'm very happy with. And then one of the PR guys for Square Enix, Adam is his name. He suggested that these sort of, as he calls them, moments of Zen would actually make for quite a good series. So he's the one who actually gave me the idea to sort of continue doing them on a weekly basis, sort of come up with a new one and post it regularly. And I've been doing that now. I think it's almost 2 months since I started doing it, and I'm actually starting to run out of moments of calm in the game. So I'll probably have to wrap them up quite soon and think of another emotion to get people going on a Monday.
Moments of stress.
Moments of stress.
Sleep nightmare scene.
Just looping that for 10 minutes. Build a playlist. I do have to admit, more recently, because I like teaching myself things, and particularly in Photoshop and Premiere Pro, in the Adobe suite. More recently, I've been having almost too much fun with Premiere Pro. I've looked back on the stuff I've posted over the past 2 or 3 weeks, and it's almost exclusively GIFs and videos and stuff like that. So I really have to rein myself in and actually post maybe a picture or some web page links or something like that, because people are probably getting bored of videos, or they're running out of data to watch them on their phones. But yeah, it's been good. And moments of calm, I like them as well for myself, because I I occasionally dabble in sort of meditative things like particularly Headspace as an app is awesome to sort of just chill out and clear your mind. And I think the moments of calm really helped with that. And I love them as moments in a game. And every time I post them, I keep seeing people, comment on how awesome those moments are. And I think it's difficult to find any other moment that translates so well into a regular series that you can put up on YouTube.
Right. That
is both nostalgic for people, that people know, and that they'll understand, and that they'll, actually also be interested in. And it's been good. I've really enjoyed doing them.
So there's no 10-hour loop coming.
I have considered the 10-hour loop. It would maybe when I've completed the series and I've built the entire playlist. Maybe I'll just amalgamate them all into one big file and then loop that for 10 hours, and then see what people say to that. But I think 10 hours is more the domain of they're taking the hobbits to Isengard, and why is the rub gone? So yeah, we'll see. Depends on if people are interested.
Well, maybe if it goes wrong, this would be pertinent to the next question. But if you had the power to rewind time, such as Max does, how would you use it?
I think there's 2 instances where I could see I could use it, and probably wouldn't use it otherwise. The first one is going to be a bit strange for you guys. Basically, I'd go back to June 2014. Basically a week before I injured my knee with something called ITB, which is runner's knee. And it basically knocked me out of running for about a year, because every time I started running, I just had to stop because my knee was in absolute agony. So I'd go back in time about a week before that happened. I'd tell myself, stop that shit. It's not worth falling out of a year of running to just, overtrain at this point. And I'd probably live a much happier 2015 without that. The other thing I'd probably rewind and tell my previous self is don't start playing League of Legends, because it's far too addictive and just upsets you whenever you lose. So yeah. But I mean, like I've never played World of Warcraft, not because I'm not interested, but because I know that if I played it as a game, I wouldn't be able to let go. And that's unfortunately happened with League of Legends. Even though I'm a massive all-round gamer, that game has sucked up too much time that I should have been spent playing with other games, just to be defeated again and again, and end up with a raft of losses on my account.
That's a really good question, Joey. And a very good answer.
Thank you. So no big self-sacrificing uses of the power. Just telling myself to do less stupid stuff.
Think of all the birds, though.
Very true. Okay, I'll have to think about that again.
All right, so you worked on the Extra Life live stream, and our next question is just what was your experience like working on that?
It was great. It was the beginning of the Square Enix live stream experience as a whole. It's when we started the Square Enix Twitch channel, and it all sort of kicked everything off from there. So Scott came up with the idea of the Extra Life live stream a while in advance. And as a community team, we'd actually said throughout many months that we wanted to start streaming as a Square Enix company for ages, and we wanted to stream, the Square Enix games, and sort of just present a view from the company that is quite human, not necessarily marketing based, not buy this game, buy, but literally just sort of playing our games for fun and seeing if people. Showing people what they want to see in the games. So, for some reason or other, I got lumped with the task of researching and literally buying all the equipment to figure it out. And I spent about 2 months just looking online, figuring out what tools I needed, what equipment, what software, what hardware. all of that, and I don't know if you guys have much streaming experience yourself, but I can tell you one thing: figuring out how to get audio from one PC to another PC is the most awful task you can ever imagine, and it's just so complicated. And you'd think it's as much as hook one cable up to one PC and stick it in the other PC. It's nothing like that, unfortunately, and it's just so frustrating. But anyway, so I spent ages doing that, and it's great because the community team, the other guys in the team, I think there's 5 of us in total or 6. They were like, yeah, we should all stream together, but none of them helped out. It was me me getting tangled in cables, trying to figure out why the audio wasn't working. But all in all, I have to say, it was worth it. And then we did the live stream for Extra Life, and it was absolutely amazing to play through Life is Strange again, particularly work with Alejandro, who I know you guys have interviewed previously as well, and he's such an awesome guy to have on the Life is Strange team because he's a massive gamer himself, and he loves all of that. But at the same time, he knows so much about the Life is Strange brand and the game as a whole. So playing the game on live stream as well, while loads of people donated money to the Extra Life cause, was great. And it was what I really enjoyed was just getting Alejandro's insight on so many different things that I didn't know, and his sort of essentially his developer commentary as we played through the game, and I absolutely loved that. I mean, it was a massively long stream. I think we streamed for 13 hours in the end, in a very not a very small room, but a very hot room, particularly when the air conditioning turns off after 6 p.m. and you've got about 6 monster PCs running all at full power. And just becoming very hot. So yeah, but no, it's been good, and it started us off really well on our live streaming so far. I think I'd have to say that Extra Life has actually been our most successful stream so far. I think we had between 800 and 1,000 concurrent viewers throughout. We raised £6,000 or dollars, I think it was, for Extra Life charity. And the engagement and participation from everyone was just great, and I love doing it. I don't know. Maybe would I do it again? It was a long 13 hours. I'd probably say yes. So just have to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, it was a really fun stream to watch.
Yeah, there was a lot of beans and a lot of chat spam going on, but I love that stuff, so that's fine.
So apart from Life is Strange, we kind of touched on this a little bit at the beginning, but are there any games that you kind of have a strong connection to?
I'd have to say, funnily enough, working for Square Enix, Final Fantasy VIII was my first Final Fantasy I ever played, and it's to date my favorite. Just everything about it, the mechanics, the story, the gameplay, I just absolutely love it. So I'd have to say I've got a very strong connection to that. But equally, another game I sunk a lot of time into was Metal Gear Snake Eater. And I have sunk hundreds of hours into all sorts of games, but I think Snake Eater is one where I literally went back and played it 4 or 5 times. I don't even think it doesn't even have different endings. So I don't even know what I was doing. But I just kept playing it over and over again. And then equally, Sleeping Dogs, which I know is a bit of a weird one to say you've got a strong emotional connection to, but I think the story in Sleeping Dogs is just so strong and so amazing, and it's all backed by this awesome gameplay and the great mechanics of the game that I loved it. And when the opportunity came to community manage Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition, I absolutely jumped on that, and initially, I think they didn't plan to have one community manager working on it, but I just elbowed my way in there and sort of just sat down and said, right, I'm doing this. I don't care what you guys say. So I'd have to say those 3 games, but yeah, there's so many games, and I've probably forgotten a couple as well that I should be mentioning here. So sorry to those games.
You can tweet it to us if you remember.
Oh, yes, I'll send you a massive list of games later on.
So, as we're wrapping up our questions before we get into the fan questions, is there any advice that you would give anyone who is maybe looking to get into the game industry, and specifically community management, social network management, etc.?
Looking at my own experience, I'd have to say the most important thing to do is just get your foot in the door somehow, and then brute force your way across to whatever you want to do. So for myself, I started in the customer service team. Even though I'd done 4 years at university, starting in customer service, it required no special training. I didn't need a degree. I didn't need to be massively talented in one way or another. But I did that, and I showed my potential, what I could do and what I could work towards in that community team. And once you're in the company, it is relatively simple to meet other people. So I just realized my microphone was partially sticking out of the jack, so I hope that wasn't too bad throughout. Anyways, yeah, so starting in customer service, and then just meeting other people through that, and when you have a bit more time, ask them if they need help, and cross-train yourself across many departments until you figure out what you want to do. And then, because with gaming, and particularly these projects in gaming, there's always something that can be helped upon. Even if it's just researching things, or proofreading, or writing copy, things like that. And I think particularly for community management, being able to sort of show that flexibility and that drive to be able to work independently is very important. So I'm sure there are a lot more immediate ways to get into community management, particularly one of our recent community managers who joined, Amy, she came over from Curve Digital, I think, who are a smaller indie games publisher. So quite often it may be a question of joining a smaller team rather than a big publisher like Square Enix, and then working your way up in that team, which is a lot easier because in smaller teams resources are a lot more limited, so you actually get a massive breadth of experience, and then moving across to bigger teams once you've got that experience. Because I know with jobs it's always a question of, you need the experience, but we're not going to give you a job until you have experience. Right. You can't get the experience without the job. So quite often it is actually starting in maybe a position you don't expect to work in for forever, but using that position as a springboard to then get on to other things. So like I did, and it worked for me, and I'm sure it will work for other people as well. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Thank you for that.
I know. It's good luck to anyone who dialed in to find out what that question was and what the answer was to that.
Right, so it's probably time to move on to fan questions then.
Ooh.
So, sorry. Flames wants to know what moment in the game was the most emotional to you? And if not one moment, then what episode? And you pretty much already answered this, but could you just recap?
Yeah, no worries. I'd have to say the euthanasia scene. It's the first time in a game I've ever had to put down a controller, scratch myself on the head, and sort of just sit back and figure out what I had to do. And it's because that's the kind of scene that it's not a decision in a game that you make, even though the consequences are only in the game. It's that kind of question that makes you it's that point where you have to figure out, where do you stand on such a difficult topic as euthanasia. Because again, there's so many arguments for and against it, and I think they're all valid. And for me, particularly on the topic of euthanasia, I don't have a strong opinion either way, because like I said, I think both ways are valid, and it's really a case by case basis, and you have to really make absolutely certain of everything before you make a decision, because it is literally a decision that is completely irreversible. And when it came to making that decision, for a chronic fence sitter like myself, having to make a decision of that magnitude was just quite harrowing in a way. And I think it affected me more than the final decision, because in gaming, the amount of times when you have to choose between saving one person or another, it's not often, but it's not unheard of. Whereas basically euthanizing someone who is strung up to a life support machine is just something you don't ever see, and that is why it was so difficult for me and so emotional. Just because it's something that it makes you question yourself, and it makes you actually look at yourself, and even you can't kid yourself at that point. Whatever decision you chose, that's the kind of stance you'll probably have as well later in life when you have to make that decision yourself. Well, right. I hope no one ever has to make that decision themselves, but it's just sort of an example. So overall, if you ever have to make a decision that you'd never have to consider or had considered before, and you'd always been a fence sitter on that, being forced to make that decision is just so emotional, and that's why I'd probably have to pick that scene.
Yeah. Kind of emotional thinking about it.
That scene was rough because they gave you like a fake option, the I don't know. So maybe I can get away with it. But...
Yeah, I definitely went with I don't know. And they're like, oh, come on, guy.
Okay, so our next question is from Ashura, and they would like to know, since you're the community manager of Life is Strange, is there anything you would change in the community, or would you keep it how it is today?
The community itself, I wouldn't change a thing. I think it's amazing how diverse it is. And even though, as a community manager, I like to sort of build up the community hubs that I control as much as possible, or the ones that I supervise, rather. I think it's amazing to see how far the community has spread and how strong it is, particularly with with websites like LifeStrangeFans.com. Which is awesome to see such a community spring up out of nothing, essentially, there. And then there's Steam as well, which I don't dabble in too much, but I keep an eye on it. And it's just seeing these communities flourish by themselves without needing to do very much. And quite often they are very positive. And I think that is something I wouldn't change in any way, shape, or form. And that the same goes across the entire Life Strange community. I wouldn't change anything as such, because the way it is, and the way it's developed and the way it is developing is something it doesn't need changing. For the game itself, I think if there was one thing I'd like to add to the game to help the community out, maybe it might be a photography mode. Just this past Friday, I showcased some of the Steam artistic screenshots that some of the Steam community took, which are awesome. They used a mod to get into the game and sort of take shots from different angles. But to have that sort of feature in the game itself would be awesome, and it would help people like myself who are absolutely crap at drawing or creating fan art or any sort of artistic endeavor. It helped us out a lot.
That would be a very cool feature.
Definitely.
So Mai would like to know, what is the most complicated part of being a community manager?
I think the most complicated one is so the short answer I'd have to say is balancing expectation versus reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if I had to pick an example, I'd have to go back to Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition. In Sleeping Dogs as a game, it was it's not banned, but it's illegal to sell it in Germany. And when the definitive edition came out, it was locked from being bought in Germany, but it was also locked from being activated in Germany. And I can't go too much into the why we had to do that. But I must have spent a month in a single Sleeping Dogs Steam discussion, just going back and forth with people in the community. And I tried to explain to them without being able to explain the reason, but I tried to sort of have them understand why it wasn't possible to do that, for us to allow the game to be played in Germany, because there are very definitive reasons, and it's not a question of that whether we're lazy or we're not interested or we don't know anything about the law. There are very specific reasons, and usually people just ignore everything you say and they turn around and call you lazy anyway. and I think that's always been the most complicated part of being a community manager, sort of telling the community or explaining a decision that has been made to the community, and quite often not being able to go into that immediate hows and whys. I mean, I personally, I'm always very much one for full disclosure. Here's exactly why we're doing what we're doing, and because in my mind, everyone should be on the same page, and everyone will be happier. But quite often, you can't do that, particularly when you're as big a company as Square Enix. And I think balancing that sort of my desire to tell everyone about everything, so they actually might understand why we're doing certain things, but is difficult, particularly when they then, like I said, turn around and ignore everything and call you lazy. So it's trying to get people to look at things from your perspective and not have them sort of knee-jerk react to you. Not for Square Enix, not bringing a certain game out on a certain platform, i.e., let's say Vita. I know personally our fans of Square Enix are massive. There's massive gaming community for the Vita, but the Vita as a platform hasn't actually been supported very much by developers, and there's a reason for that. And it's quite often business related, but it's reached a point where the Vita community, as a whole, as gamers, think that Square Enix and Sony and everyone hates the Vita, and we hate our fans and we hate money. Those are literally things. Those are literally accusations that have been flung at us on a regular basis. And if it's literally, if you actually look at that accusation, it doesn't make sense in any way, shape, or form. So, we're seeing people accuse us of not hating money or not liking our fans, hating money and not liking our fans, and sort of see their flawed logic is incredibly difficult when you've heard of the reasons why certain decisions are made, but you can't explain them properly for what, because it is business decisions, and generally it's always quite difficult to talk about those things, even though for me personally I'd love to, but it's quite often, particularly with Square Enix as a company that is that has investors and it's a publicly traded company, anything you say can lower or spike the value of shares in the company. And quite often that is why things cannot be officially talked about, even if you'd like to. And like I said, so that's probably the most complicated part, being that go-between between the company and the community, and trying to make the community understand what's happening without, being able to give them all the facts.
Right.
Even though you'd love to.
Mm-hmm. So, Zach would like to know, what are your favorite parts about working with the community?
I think I think finding good content and amazing content that I do this on a very regular basis because there's just so much of it out there, is amazing. And I have also then dabbled in creating some things myself, like the Moments of Calm or the more recent Spirit Character little GIF thing. Creating that myself is quite a lot of fun, and then sort of seeing how much the community enjoys it and how much people react to it. And I think it's just, it's great to find these things and share them with people who will enjoy them as well. And it's sort of bringing that enjoyment to other people and seeing that, we all basically, we all love the same things and we all hate the same characters in the game. And we all love certain characters and maybe others not so much. And it's just finding, and seeing the amazing stuff that people can create and sharing that with the community as a whole, and then just seeing how much they enjoy it.
Yeah, it's even from our standpoint, it is a spectacle to behold.
Yeah, it's a great community.
Indeed, it is.
So our last question is from Kirk, and so what he would like to know: what would you like to see more from gaming communities in general?
Let's see. So, I think what's important for gaming communities to do, particularly, and I think a lot of communities could take a leaf out of the Life is Strange book here, is to not tear each other apart over disputes as to what's going on in the game, because so many times you'll see in a single gaming community people of different persuasions or ideas or theories about the game, and they'll often just tear into each other and rip each other apart. And it's like, guys, why are you doing that? You all love the same game, just get on with each other. And I think what would be awesome as well for gaming communities in general is, it comes back to what I found complicated in my earlier question. I wish people would look at gaming industry announcements and speculate about the logic behind them rather than just knee-jerk reacting to the actual announcement. Right. Because in gaming, quite often a lot of things will be unexpected. Certain games might not come out on certain platforms, or a certain game might be cancelled. Or there's so many different scenarios. And quite often, and the hardcore communities, the core community of a game, which is usually quite a small part, is actually quite good at this. They'll usually look at the announcement and they'll analyze it in loads of different ways and sort of figure out why it was decided in the way it was. Whereas on the other hand, you've got basically a whole lump of gamers as a whole who look at announcements or things that gaming companies do and immediately think that Square Enix hates money, Square Enix hates their fans, Square Enix hates games. Why do you hate your Dragon Quest? Why do you hate Final Fantasy? Why, all those things. And, if you actually sort of just sat down and thought about why a company might do things, and quite often maybe it's because the company is forced to do that, to make a decision.
Right.
So I think as like I said, hardcore gaming communities who've been attached to a game for very long are usually quite good at sort of analyzing it and breaking it down and understanding why certain decisions were made, whereas the more general communities are a lot more the knee-jerk reaction immediately. Oh my god, I hate it, I'm gonna vent my entire emotion upon the internet now. and then they usually get thousands of likes on a Facebook page for trashing whatever was said or whatever. But I on the other hand, I know it's difficult because at the end of the day, quite often with gaming, because it's such an emotional community, it can be difficult to extract yourself from what you've just learned and actually sort of take a step back and understand it. And quite often people will, it's I think it's a natural thing for people to do, to want to vent their rage. But I think over the long-term period, I think it'd be great if people thought a bit more about why things are happening rather than that they're happening.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess it goes back to analyzing, like you said, kind of the closer you get to the inner workings of a game company and the gaming community, the gaming industry, it makes it easier to understand. So
yes, exactly.
So do your research, people. Stop throwing pitchforks.
Yeah, I can only dodge so many. I think the Life is Strange community actually has a very large, hardcore base, and I think, but the great thing about Life is Strange is that whatever happens, we're always very in tune with our community, so we'll always think of you guys first, if and whenever we do anything. So hopefully we won't have any pitchforks thrown after us at some point in the future.
Not yet.
Not yet, at least. Who knows?
Okay, so
all right. Well,
questions, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right, so it's probably time to move on to our Everyday Hero segment.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, to those who are unfamiliar with what our Everyday Hero segment is, it's a short piece towards the end of the show where we just appreciate what the community has created, whether it be fan art, cosplay, music, videos, it can be anything. And we'll probably feature on the show at some point. So yeah, I'll probably start off this week. So I chose a piece called Max and Chloe by Werewolf Mojo on Twitter, and it's a really nice traditional art piece, which is kind of like, I was looking at it and then I realized that it kind of had like a Tim Burton kind of style towards it, especially with Chloe. And I love like the very small details, like the cigarette in Chloe's hand, like Max looking at the Polaroid, the Jane Doe detailing, and even with the inclusion of the blue butterflies on the tattoo itself, as well as the shading just across it. I just love this piece so much. Really lovely, really well done.
That's awesome. I have to agree. And one of the great things about Life is Strange is that there's so many different styles of artwork coming out, and like you said, this is quite reminiscent of Tim Burton. I personally haven't seen that much Tim Burton esque Life is Strange fan art, so it's definitely a good choice. I can definitely see that.
It also, which I guess the Alice Madness Returns is kind of Tim Burton esque as well, but it also it kind of reminds me of the I don't know if I'm using the right term here, like the gothic baby doll style type thing to it, which I'm not saying that to denigrate it at all, but it is very, very interesting. And I think one thing that I like a lot is the pencil work, which I'm assuming that's colored pencils. I don't know if it was.
I believe it is.
I really like that, and just if you look at Max's hair, for example, how it starts off. Well, it would be like the light is shining on it. You're not going to have that much. The light's going to be reflecting. You're not going to have that much detail and color because of it being kind of whitewashed out by the light. But then as you go forward, the shading and the coloring and all that, I really, really enjoy that aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love the colored pencil. Like, it's colored pencil, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, I love the style, and I love how there's nothing below like their waist. I really like that, and I like how it's kind of like kind of transparent in a way. Like there's no like, it's just like it's on a piece of paper, so it's like, I don't know, it's like so minimal but so much at the same time. Like it's very detailed, but it's like it's very nice. So
yeah, it's good. Right?
So that is Werewolf Mojo on Twitter.
Yep. Joey.
My choice is entitled Max, and it is by TXFDA. I think I'm just gonna say TXFDA, not text. I really it's very very cutesy, kind of Lilo and Stitchy.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I do appreciate the more like, you know, drastic and I guess I don't want to say intricate, but like the more weighty art. But I also really appreciate like a lot of the cutesy different style than what you're used to seeing. And I saw this one and I really loved it. Another one too is I always like seeing a happy Max, because after 5 episodes of seeing Max being thrown through the gambit with negative emotions, it's nice to see a happy smiling Max. And the detail and the line work and all that is really great. Yeah, I would definitely buy a comic book or anything like that with this style. Life is Strange, so
noted.
I want like a sticker of that.
Yeah.
I'm just staring at it. It's I kind of see what you mean, Joey. That it's really nice to see a happy Max instead of like Max during like episode 4 or 5.
Right.
And really like the kind of use of the pose where she's like taking a selfie like in a mirror or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really nice touch, as well as the kind of like the bright spots in the cheeks as well.
I think my favorite part about it is the fact that the head and the feet are so like out of proportion, but it makes it so cute. Like I love the style, like the way, like how her head is so big and then the rest of her body is just so small. It's like a bobblehead almost.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. I would love this as a bobblehead, actually.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind, Toby.
All right. Noted again.
Okay. Yeah. And the expression as well is just I just keep going back to the expression because I don't know. There's something I can't put my finger on it. It's just
infectious.
Yeah, infectious about it. Just like looking back at it.
I feel like if I stare at it too much, it'll haunt me in my dreams.
Oh. Okay.
All right. So, should we move on?
Yeah.
Did you have anything, Toby, for it?
Yeah. I like I said, the infectious smile was is just makes. I mean, if you look at the eyes and just the eyes look slightly delirious and crazy, but but yeah, like you said, it is. And I actually, thinking about all the art I've seen in general, it is actually a very good point to make that you see surprisingly little like Max gleefully happy art. You know, in the grand scale of all the artwork you see, is usually quite serious. But yeah, so that's pretty awesome aspect of this one.
All right, Jess.
All right, so my choice this week it's called Snow by I can't pronounce her last name.
Ketty.
I'm so sorry. Ketty? Okay. I'm going to call her My Cutie because that's what it looks to me. On DeviantArt. And I chose this piece because, well, first of all, it's a lot different from the first two. So I just wanted to point that out. Unlike the other two, it's a lot more focused on like realism, and it's more it's a lot like the games versions of Max and Chloe. I love how the face, like how it's just like the outline and there's like very minimal shading. I think that really is a brilliant idea, because there's so much color in this that it almost makes it like a complete drawing. And I love how the background it's kind of blurry, but it's also very detailed at the same time. And just how they're in the center, they're like the main focus of the drawing, and I thought that was really nice. So.
Is that Max and Chloe's house? Not Max and Chloe's. Chloe's house in the background as well.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice little touch.
It's I like the depth of field on it with like just like you said, with the house being kind of blurred out. It's almost as if this were a photo that had been taken, with the focus being on Max and Chloe. And
then... Yeah, you guys have pretty much said what I was gonna say, so I'm just staring at it blankly.
The colors are really nice too.
Yeah,
the blues and purples.
Yes. See, this kind of artwork is kind of reminiscent, like one of my favorite comic book artists, Emma Vicelli, who I believe did some Life is Strange artwork in the past.
Friends for Life.
Yeah. And it's kind of reminiscent of that, and just seeing this kind of style, it's just really nice to see. And I really
it's a good shout to Emma Vicelli, because she did the Friends for Life series. I think it was 10 Friends for Life pictures that she did for us. It's awesome. But yeah, I just noticed that Chloe's got a turtleneck on, which I don't think I've ever seen on any artwork before. So a nice little touch there.
And I think Maya's she's taking commissions too. She does a lot of Life is Strange stuff. So hit her up for that if you want that.
Awesome. Good to know.
So thanks to Werewolf Mojo, TXFDA, and Mike Quady, for letting us use your work.
Yeah, and if you want to see your artwork in the show, please just send it our way at blackwellpodcast@hotmail.com, or you can submit it through the Life is Strange fan site through the form there in the Blackwell podcast section, or just tweet it to us. Just send it our way. We will probably use it in the future.
Yep. And to everyone that has submitted stuff, thank you, and keep your eye out. Yep. All right, well, I guess the whole YouTube gambit, like, comment, subscribe. If this is your first episode with us, go back and listen to our others. Thanks for joining us, Toby.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the show with us. It was a pleasure having you.
I know, it was a pleasure all mine. It's been really good to finally be part of it after having spent so long listening in.
It's been a long time coming as well.
Cause it has actually, it's my fault.
That's kind of a bit of both like all of our problems. Just like good that we actually finally sorted something out.
Yeah. Good times.
So get in touch with us if you have questions, comments, concerns, something you'd like to see on the show, artwork you want to share with us. We're available on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud. We have an RSS feed through SoundCloud. I think that's everything. Oh, we're on Life is Strange Fans. You can find us there. That's our home. Join us. And I guess you want to talk about the upcoming weeks.
It's kind of going to be difficult for us to do episodes in the next few weeks because like all of us have like scheduling conflicts at the moment. So right. I believe we're going to be on a short hiatus for a while.
Yeah, hopefully not longer than a month. But we definitely are not ending the show. We're just busy. Super busy. So
this is like the busiest month.
Yeah.
Our upcoming months.
Because we've got plenty of ideas for episodes in the future. It's just time is not in our favor.
Right.
Yeah. And congratulations to all of our new graduates you're graduating from high school and all that, and Jess Jess is one of them.
Yep.
Thanks.
So, but we'll keep active on our social medias and stuff while we're on our hiatus. But
so we will see everybody in the near future then.
yeah, and keep us in your minds. We love you. Don't forget about us. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.